Tonight, we bring you new revelations from Monica Lewinsky's lawyer, William Ginsburg, who has been noticeably quiet for the past 2 days. He has heard the latest claims from Linda Tripp, the woman who made the secret tapes, and he is reacting. Mr. Ginsburg spoke with Barbara earlier today from Washington.
Well, what about Monica Lewinsky's past? Are those reports of DNA material and address true? And what's going on with Kenneth Starr and with Linda Tripp? The latest news is that Linda Tripp has said that she was present when Miss Lewinsky received a late-night phone call from the president. Is this true?
Based on everything that I know, based on my investigation of the entire situation, Miss Tripp was never privy to any conversation that Monica Lewinsky ever had with the President of the United States.
To your knowledge, did Monica Lewinsky have late-night conversations with the president?
I don't know the time of any conversation that she ever had because I never considered it relevant. I do know that she has had conversations with the President of the United States.
That isn't exactly usual between an intern and a president. Can you characterize these conversations?
An occasional telephone conversation. She was working in the legislative section of the White House, and it was a hi, hello, how are you, fine, and that's it. They were colleagues. I know that's hard to believe, but the president and his staff do talk.
Miss Tripp then is lying when she says that she heard these conversations?
I prefer to be much more refined than that. No one ever lies. People often do what they have to do to make their story sound right. Miss Tripp's work, the statement that I saw, looks more like the pre-publicity for a book than it does like the truth.
Well, Mrs. Tripp also said that she saw numerous gifts that the president gave to Miss Lewinsky. Now, the First Lady has said that the president is very generous. He often gives away a tie. Could you describe the gifts that you know that the president has given your client?
Small and inconsequential. There has never been a gift that, frankly, you couldn't buy in the White House souvenir shop. They're nothing worth talking about. Hats, T-shirts, hat pins.
Was one of the gifts a souvenir hat that was purchased in Martha's Vineyard when the president was on vacation with his family?
I believe so.
Mm-hmm. We still hear conflicting stories about that dress, perhaps with DNA material. Does such a dress exist?
I'm not aware of any such dress. I've said for 2 weeks now that I have investigated that very carefully because I think it's a very important potential piece of evidence. I'm not aware that any such dress exists. I know that the Office of the Special Prosecutor, Special Counsel, took dresses and pantsuits out of Ms. Lewinsky's closet when they searched her premises. But I have now heard, candidly through the newspapers, that and the electronic media, that there was no evidence of any such DNA evidence on the material that they took.
To your knowledge, did the president ever give Miss Lewinsky a dress?
Unless you consider a long T-shirt a dress,
okay.
The answer is no.
Mr. Ginsburg, in recent days, your client has been portrayed in increasingly negative terms. We have heard a married high school teacher say that she had an affair with him when she was in college and that she threatened to expose the affair when he tried to break it off. She's been accused of forging letters. Sources have said that she stalked the president. She's prone to exaggeration. Does this make your client an unreliable or an unbelievable witness?
I don't think that anyone in the United States could withstand the scrutiny of the press as it is occurring in this case. I think Ms. Lewinsky has a past. I think she has a youthful past. I think she, like every one of us, has things in her past that would theoretically make us look unreliable. I think she's perfectly reliable.
Here's the central question. If your client told the truth in the affidavit that she did not have a sexual relationship with the president, then she would not need immunity. So one might assume that you are asking for immunity because she lied in that affidavit. Is that a fair assumption?
No, it's not a fair assumption. What is a fair assumption is that I think most of the American public are getting tired of talking about the sex life of the president, the sex life of a young girl, and I really have no comment on their sex life, his sex life, her sex life, Mrs. Clinton's sex life, or anybody else's sex life.
We had heard that the talks with Ken Starr had been stalled. Is there still negotiation going on?
I'd like to take this opportunity on your program to clarify something. There were never talks, negotiations, so there's never been a stall. We have never been negotiating for immunity. We have been telling the prosecutor consistently that if he wants full, complete, comfortable, relaxed cooperation, the only way he's going to get it is with full immunity or a promise not to prosecute.
Mr. Ginsburg, the feeling is that the reason that Ken Starr has not given your client the immunity she wants is that she hasn't been forthcoming enough.
There's an old saying that I attribute to Harry Truman. It says, they think we give them hell, we give them the truth, and sometimes they think it's hell. We cannot do more than give them the truth.
Yesterday, the judge in the Paula Jones case decided that she would not allow any evidence about Miss Lewinsky to be presented during that trial. What specific effect does that have on her legal situation now?
In general, Judge Wright said that she did not believe that anything that Monica Lewinsky had to say was material to the core issues of the Jones case. Since materiality is an essential element of the crime of perjury, one would think that what Judge Wright had done with that singular line in her ruling was to make the issue of perjury go away, make it irrelevant under the Supreme Court and other cases. So it is my hope that Mr. Kendall or Mr. Bennett or both of them and we will make a similar motion to dismiss the Lewinsky grand jury and that it will be granted.
Mr. Ginsburg, not too long ago, Miss Lewinsky seems to have been a rather happy-go-lucky young woman with a great future ahead of her. I wonder how she feels when she hears all of these things said about her.
She is devastated. She goes into an emotional fit. How about somebody coming forward and saying nice things about Monica? But you know what? The tabloid press, and that's the media, the electronic media, as well as the written media, they're not interested in people who want to say that Monica is a bright, affable, effusive young lady with tremendous skills. They're only interested in the prurient stories. You know, it makes me a little sick.
Our thanks to William Ginsburg. By the way, the two men Mr. Ginsburg referred to, Mr. Kendall and Mr. Bennett, are President Clinton's lawyers.
Well, next on the program, look closely at this man, a suspected serial killer. 42 have died. But does the evidence point to him? You'll be shocked. Is he a murderer on the loose or an innocent man living a nightmare? Brian Ross investigates a mystery after this. The man you're about to meet is living a nightmare. His face and his name have been splashed across newspapers and televisions in Texas for years, linking him to the most chilling of crimes. Police have branded him a suspected serial killer, even though to this day they found no hard evidence against him, not one shred. How could this happen in America? Is he a murderer too smart to get caught, or is he a victim? ABC's chief investigative correspondent, Brian Ross, has a mystery with a surprising outcome.
For at least 15 years now, in the small towns and suburbs along this interstate south of Houston, a serial killer has been on the loose.
There's somebody that's out there. These little girls are not missing on their own.
There are going to be other abductions, and we have to be ready.
The killers are mobile, and victims along that, up and down that freeway are accessible.
Several serial killers may be involved, but for a lot of people in the area, there's little doubt about who at least one of them is. This man, Robert Abel, a retired NASA engineer.
I think that Robert Abel needs to be feared.
In fact, police have taken the unusual step of publicly identifying Abel as a suspect based almost entirely on an FBI serial killer profile.
He's a suspect. He may not be responsible for killing these women, and he may be responsible for killing these women.
It's quite a crime to be connected with. One of the worst series of unsolved murders in the country. At least 42 teenage girls and young women.
Law enforcement is not going to sit here and see our young kids being drug away from their families in the middle of the day, night, or whatever.
Don Clark is the special agent in charge of the FBI in Houston.
We've got to do something to try and see to it that this doesn't happen again.
The victims have all come from the quiet, mostly middle-class towns and suburbs that border the interstate between Houston and Galveston. 16-year-old Kimberly Pitchford was last seen leaving a high school driver's education class. 13-year-old Crystal Baker disappeared from a local convenience store. Each and every case a heartbreaking story that has shocked a community and devastated a family. The latest, that of 17-year-old Jessica Kane.
If there was anything that Jessica did wrong, it was her friendly disposition. She was friends with everyone.
Jessica was performing with a local theater group one night last August when she disappeared. Last seen driving home alone on Interstate 45 in her pickup truck.
I found the truck on the side of the road. And when I looked in, I expected to see her there. And when I didn't, that was the most horrible feeling you could imagine.
Once again, suspicion fell on Robert Abel almost immediately. Abel first became a suspect years ago when 4 of the murdered girls were found near his horseback riding business. And in the Jessica Kane case, police, accompanied by Jessica's parents, searched Abel's property for 2 days, but turned up no body and no evidence on Abel.
All you can say to the families is we're doing the best we can. Please be patient.
Pat Bittner is the assistant police chief in the town of League City, where Abel's property is located. Armed with the FBI serial killer profile, Bittner has been on Robert Abel's case since 1993.
Profiling is very important. It provides an investigative aid for us. It will give us an idea of the type of person we're looking for. Abel exhibited some of the traits that are consistent with being a serial sexual killer.
The FBI's ability to profile and track down serial killers has gained wide acclaim, depicted in books and movies like this one, Silence of the Lambs, a relatively new technique based on a psychological analysis of the unique traits of known serial killers.
He's in his 30s or 40s. He's got real physical strength combined with an older man's self-control. He's cautious, precise, and he's never impulsive. He'll never stop.
Hannibal Lecter and what makes a good movie is one thing, but as we learned in a 2020 investigation, Robert Abel quite another. Yet Abel has become a hated man, based almost entirely on an FBI profile provided to police 4 years ago. Since then, police have been unable to back up their suspicions with a single shred of evidence.
After searching his home, we were unsuccessful in finding any forensic evidence or direct evidence to connect them with the killings, but at the same time, we weren't able to eliminate him. So at this time, he is still a suspect.
And that's based almost entirely on the profile?
Yes.
It's a profile done in what police admit was only one 2-hour session with the FBI, laid out in this affidavit Bittner used to get the search warrant for Abel's home. Virtually everything about Abel seems to somehow connect him to the traits of a serial killer. His intelligence, his proximity to the crime, his troubles with 2 ex-wives who alleged he had a bad temper and sometimes beat his horses. It all led to the conclusion in stark, no uncertain terms that Robert William Abel was a serial sexual offender and killer.
I didn't do it. Had nothing to do with it. Never in my lifetime did I see any one of those 4 girls or any of the other 40 girls that they're talking about missing. I have never killed anyone.
But Abel, a 58-year-old father of 3, says no one will believe him. And he has lived a life of hell for the last 4 years, being known in his community as a suspected serial killer.
Oh, man, you have to live through something like this to appreciate it, you know it?
Abel has no known criminal record and has volunteered to take a lie detector test. But he says all the police seem to care about is that he somehow fits the FBI profile.
You take a profile that you could fit to just about anybody, and you place it on someone, and basically no more than that profile is what would got me named as that suspect.
Many people in League City call it the killing field.
It's been a big story all over Houston, which Abel says has nearly wrecked his business, scared away friends, and led to numerous death threats.
And I've got friends right now that would kill you.
Abel recorded this chilling telephone call from the father of one of the dead girls.
I had a person that was going to come out there and take you out of the stables and take you to Las Vegas and put you in a sand dune and beat your ass all the way up there and then just put you in a sand dune. I wanted to kill him.
This is the man who made the calls, Tim Miller, whose daughter Laura is one of the girls Abel is suspected of killing. Based largely on what the police are saying about the profile, Miller freely admits he's been trying to make Abel's life miserable.
I went out there with a gun.
What'd you say to him?
Said I'm going to remind him every day what he's done.
You think he would kill you?
Yes, I do. I think there's a really substantial risk, and that's one of the most aggravating things. The police department alleges that I am a continuing suspect, causing people like him to believe that if they kill me, they're going to be killing a serial killer.
You've seen the search warrant affidavit?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go through it, because this is your chance here.
All right.
Perhaps the most significant point in the FBI profile, that 4 of the bodies were found near Abel's property, what the police and the FBI call a serial killer's comfort zone.
This comfort zone is an area where the killer feels at home, where he can go back and probably relive the crimes.
They call this, if they look at you, your comfort zone.
It's not at all a comfort zone, but I certainly wouldn't put a body out right next to a trail where I was planning on holding a trail ride. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
If you're a smart killer, would you really want to leave the bodies on your own land that would point at you?
Well, suppose you're such a smart, confident killer that you think you're smarter than the police. Then you wouldn't be intimidated by leaving those bodies in your own backyard.
Even Abel's cooperation with the police has counted against him.
His cooperation was welcomed by us at the time. It's still welcome now. But it just so happens that that kind of behavior is consistent with a serial killer.
Much of the background information police gathered to profile Abel came from an ex-wife at a time they were going through their divorce, who Abel says falsely told police he beat his horses, and, more to the point, that he kept photographs of nude white females.
That is true. That is true. And I want you to know, out of 6,000 photographs, they found 2 nudie pictures, which you could show in any Sunday school class. I mean...
So you didn't have 6,000 photographs of various naked women?
Absolutely not. I had 6,000 photographs of travel to Europe, family pictures, and etc. And I'll put every one of them on display to this day.
These are some of them. Photos which might also suggest a man with normal, healthy relationships. But they didn't change the thinking of police.
Unfortunately, the results of the search warrant were inconclusive.
Unfortunately. Doesn't that clear him? If you don't find what you're looking for?
Well, you're fencing with me. It doesn't clear him, and it didn't eliminate him. So he's still in the pool. He's still swimming in the pool of suspects.
Abel says he has suffered the same fate as the security guard wrongly accused in the bombing at the Atlanta Olympics, Richard Jewell, against whom there was no physical evidence, but whose personality and eagerness to cooperate with authorities also fit an FBI profile.
These will record respiration.
It was a polygraph test that helped clear Richard Jewell, and Robert Abel volunteered to take one too, for us, conducted by polygraph expert and former FBI agent Bill Tigan, who was paid by 2020 and who conducted 2 different tests in a 1-week period.
This test is about to begin. Is your full name Robert William Abel?
Yes.
The results of such tests are not generally admissible in court as evidence, but they are widely used by police and the FBI as an investigative tool.
Did you cause the death of any one of those 4 females whose bodies were found on the Mako Stewart property we've discussed?
No.
Is there anything about the death of any one of those 4 females we've discussed that you're deliberately keeping from me today?
No.
The results were dramatic. It seemed at first that Robert Abel had just convicted himself. The examiner found deception in the first test, based, oddly enough, on Abel's apparent hesitation to reveal a rumor he had heard, that one of the dead girls was involved with drugs.
I didn't want to, with what I consider hearsay type stuff, I didn't want to bring it out.
That showed up on the machine as deception, although the examiner said it also showed Abel had a conscience and couldn't beat the machine.
If you'll sit back in the chair now and lower your arms.
1 week later, Abel was tested again by Bill Tigan, this time with the disparaging rumors about one of the victims fully disclosed in advance.
What's your attitude about whether or not you passed this polygraph test or not?
I think I passed it.
You think you did?
Yeah.
My analysis agrees with you, and so does the computer's.
Okay.
Now,
I'm very pleased to hear that.
The results of the 2020 lie detector test were considered extremely significant at the FBI office in Houston, where agents working the case told us they considered the 4-year-old profile on Abel to be of poor quality anyway, and that they have now ruled out Abel as a suspect.
The profilers will tell you themselves, the experts will tell you that many people can fit the same profile, but the evidence should only lead to the one person that's actually guilty.
But the results didn't mean a thing to League City Assistant Police Chief Pat Bittner, who says Abel may be innocent, but he's still a suspect.
I still consider Robert Abel an innocent man,
But a suspect.
but a suspect.
Do you know the power of those words to call somebody a suspect in a serial killing?
I can imagine, yes.
So you don't think he's owed an apology?
No, not for me.
As for the father who was close to killing Robert Abel, Tim Miller, he says he now feels differently about the man.
I mean, he's went through hell. Let's face it, he has. And if there is no connection, my God, he's a stronger man than me. You know, to put up with this over all these years.
It's something that you check in and you can't check out. You had nothing to do with it. And it's unjustified that it was brought on you in the first place, but they won't leave you alone, and they should.
This is horrible. He's still a suspect. And yet, do the police have other suspects, Brian?
Well, they say there are other suspects, but they've lost a lot of ground in the last 4 years by focusing so much on Robert Abel.
Doesn't he have a lawyer or some means of suing?
Well, he's tried to sue Hugh, but the courts have not allowed it. They've said that the police are in their rights to call him a suspect, so he's in a kind of legal never-never land and can't really clear his name.
No other way to salvage something of his life until something is done one way or the other.
Until tonight in our report, really.
Yeah. Well, fascinating story. Thank you, Brian.
Well, next, a man who is changing your life. Multi-billionaire Bill Gates, the king of computer software. What makes him tick and what exciting new products will he be bringing you soon? Take a ride with Bill Gates and me when we come back.
The richest man alive has plans for you. Futuristic gadgets, phenomenal games. They're coming soon from the king of computer software. Barbara Walters with Bill Gates when 2020 Friday continues. After this from our ABC stations. From ABC News, 2020 continues. Once again, Barbara Walters.
He's been called an evil genius, a devil, and a nerd. But the one name that Bill Gates can't argue with is the richest man in the world. His computer software company, Microsoft, has earned him a personal fortune worth nearly $40 billion. Not bad for a college dropout. Bill Gates rarely does interviews, but tonight he talks about it all, his marriage, his money, his battle with the government, and you'll see some of his amazing innovations that may change our lives soon.
Your 2 o'clock meeting with Nathan has been canceled.
You can browse information while you're in your car.
Bill Gates, at 42, is like a kid with a new toy. This is a prototype of his Auto PC, a mobile personal computer set for production later this year. It will read email, supply road directions, and dial telephone calls.
Dial.
The Auto PC is just one of dozens of computer products under final review by one of the most fertile minds in the world. Bill Gates was an A student in high school without trying, during one semester without even going to math class, and he can write with both hands. He got intrigued with computers in junior high and got so involved with them that he dropped out of Harvard to work with his childhood friend, Paul Allen, on developing software for the first generation of personal computers. They developed like Topsy and founded a business that would become the world standard of software, Microsoft. Gates owns 20% of Microsoft, his holdings in the company alone worth more than $38 billion. He is, by any yardstick, the richest man in the world. His company is under attack by the Justice Department, which accuses Microsoft of trying to stifle competition. The company's Windows operating system is installed in more than 90% of the world's computers, and what Bill Gates sees as continuing innovation, the government sees as a dangerous monopoly. For years, Gates was one of the world's most eligible bachelors. In 1994, he took himself off that list by marrying Melinda French, then a Microsoft executive. The couple have an 18-month-old daughter and have just moved into a waterfront mansion just outside of Seattle, estimated to cost $40 million. Gates started the project before his marriage, and the house is full of high-tech features. Gates wouldn't show us that house. He's determined to keep cameras out. But he did invite us to his family's vacation compound on the shore of Hood Canal in Washington State. Aside from family visits, this is where Gates comes twice a year all by himself. He calls those stays Think Weeks, where he is alone with books, work-related reading, and new products. There is a rustic air to the Hood Canal property, the kind of place where computer gear almost seems out of place. Okay, look ahead 20 years. What are we going to have?
Well, 20 years.
This is talking to me and saying, wake
That's
up,
true.
wake up.
It noticed that there was an appointment. Let me turn it off. 20 years is a long time in the technology business. We're already working on computers that you can talk to and that'll talk back to you. And so you'll just use normal speech and be able to interact. So it'll notice who's using it. It'll even be able to tell what mood you're in.
Well, what good is that?
Well, it can see how you react. If you're really surprised about something, then it will give you more information. If you seem to be bored, then it'll compress that and go on and show you something else. So in the same way as when you interact with another human, your expressions, your tone of voice are a key part of how you communicate. The computer will be able to understand all of that and therefore be a lot easier to work with than it is right now.
We're in a beautiful home that's your getaway or your gateway home. The home that you've built that so much has been written about, you want to keep private, that $40 million huge home where you supposedly wear a pin and you walk through rooms and your favorite music comes up and your favorite art comes up. Okay, you're in it. I want to hear what happened the first night you were there. Did everything work, or did everything, you pressed the button and nothing happened?
It wasn't the first night, but I think the third or fourth night where I brought up a big screen in my bedroom, and for some reason the system stopped working, and it was just sitting there shining, and I wanted to go to sleep, and so finally I had to get a blanket and put it over the screen, and I still couldn't sleep very well that night, and finally in the morning I figured out what was going wrong. So even turning on the lights still isn't perfect, but I think in the next few months I'll get it all working.
I wish I had a camera when you couldn't turn off the computers and you had to put the blanket over the TV. You have for years, ever since you were a little boy, I hear, been called a nerd. Do you care? Does it hurt you?
Well, nerd means a lot of things. I'm somebody who can sit and read a book about science for hours on end, and I don't mind being labeled as somebody who finds that interesting.
In your early days at Harvard, with your friend Paul Allen, you began to write what became the first recipe for software. And you worked for 5 weeks making this basic program back in 1975. Close your eyes, or keep them open, but put your mind back there and tell me what that time was like.
It was very intense. Paul and I had talked about how these inexpensive computers could change the world. And we wanted to provide the software. And so we decided to hurry up and get a product done, to be the first. And so we worked day and night. It was a lot of fun.
Did you sleep?
Well, we'd fall asleep on the terminal sometimes, but we were totally focused on getting this done. We even wrote down that we wanted there to be a computer on every desk and in every home.
In 1975?
That's right. Even today, when I look back on it, what we got done in that 5-week period, I can't believe how intense that was.
Cloning. How do you feel about cloning? Would you want to be cloned? Imagine 14 years from now, there could be a 14-year-old Bill Gates. Just think of what it would mean to Microsoft, all those new ideas.
Well, I think cloning is a bad thing. And they'll pass regulations that prevent any of that being done on humans in any way.
You, Bill Gates, would not want to be cloned.
No.
Not only does Bill Gates not believe in cloning, he thinks there are limits even to science. He sees a future rich with smart computers and with artificial intelligence, but says that although computers can do a lot, they will never have a soul. Do you believe in God?
I was raised religiously, and my wife and I definitely believe in raising our kids religiously. I'm a big believer in religious values. As far as, the deep questions about God, it's not something that I think I personally have the answers.
You are the richest man in the world. What is that like? What does that even feel like? I hear you drive your own car and you're very relaxed, but you're the richest man in the world.
Well, it's exciting to have been part of something that has been successful. I will have the privilege and responsibility of taking that wealth and giving it away in a way that helps out people who haven't had the same opportunities. I don't believe in passing on major wealth to children, and therefore everything that I'm earning is going to go towards the causes that I think can help out. One of the visions I'm very excited about is this idea that anyone in America can go into their local public library and not only have the books that are there, but also have a personal computer connected up to the internet and have all the information that even the richest kid is being able to get through that same capability.
Gates has put his money where his idea is. He and Melinda Gates have set up a $200 million foundation to put computers into libraries that serve underprivileged neighborhoods. In places as varied as Washington, D.C. and Gadsden, Alabama, kids whose meals come from food stamps will be on educational diets enriched by the internet. But Gates's potential for charity is mind-boggling. He could give away $37 billion and still be a billionaire. Now, you could improve the quality of life in any third world country. You could take care of any poor child in this country. You could do anything. Are you going to take that fortune in the near future and give it away?
Well, at age 42, I've given, at this point, a little over $500 million to two foundations that are doing some things I really believe in. And in giving money, you have to be as careful as you are in making money. You want to make sure it goes to good causes. And so if you just spend it in an unthinking way, it can be gone in a second.
Well, Ted Turner, who pledged $1 billion to the United Nations, you know what he has said. He's criticized you for not giving more now. He says, what good is wealth sitting in a bank? In other words, why not help the world now? I mean, why keep saying somewhere down the line?
Well, I think Ted's great, and I'm very glad he's given that $1 billion. Certainly my giving will be in the same league as Ted's and beyond. But I don't want to set any artificial milestones. During my lifetime, the money will be given away. I believe I have quite a few years left in my life.
Bill, I read a very interesting profile of you in Time magazine a little while back. One of the things that was written about you is that you don't really care about the emotional or personal side of people, that you are very interested in the intellectual capacity, but not very much in personal relationships.
Well, I think that's a very unfair comment. It was actually a comment from somebody who'd never met me. My priority in life is my family. I always knew I'd get married and have children. Family life is all about emotion and sharing things and doing things with each other.
Tell me about your wife. There were many women that you knew could have married anyone.
The simplest thing to say about Melinda is I fell deeply in love with her and decided to get married and have a family together.
You want to have more children?
We'll have more children, probably a couple more.
Okay, which brings me to Jennifer. Are you gaga over this child?
Absolutely. I think she's the neatest kid who ever lived. I love going home and playing with her. I love seeing her learn new things every day. She's just amazing.
You and your wife take singing lessons, did I hear?
We did take singing lessons. That was a fun thing that we did together.
Do you sing lullabies to Jennifer?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, here's her first. Sing me a lullaby that you would sing to Jennifer.
But her favorite song right now is Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star.
Can I hear Twinkle,
Okay.
Twinkle, Little Star?
Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are.
I think that's enough.
Okay.
Whole new career there. Well, from the twinkling little stars to the world of the future, wait till you see what Bill Gates is dreaming up now. And why is the government on his back? He'll give you his take and more. And Barbara continues with Bill Gates after this. Bill Gates was ahead of the pack, barely out of his teens, when he first developed his computer software more than 20 years ago. And he's working hard to stay on top. As Barbara continues, you'll hear about his current battle, Bill Gates versus the government. And you'll take a trip into the future, the near future. What's Bill Gates up to now?
The beauty of motion, of form, captured by sensors and cables and imaging software into bytes and bits. It's a continuing project at Microsoft that helps study human motion while translating it into cold cash. The real mechanic wrestling with this real wheel is captured in this laboratory and electronically morphed into this video game. It's called Precision Racing and is a Microsoft bestseller.
Mr. Wright should have write to Bill Gates
In another
right
building
now.
of the sprawling Microsoft campus, other researchers work with speech recognition software. This man spends his days training computers to see and to respond to his moves. It may take years for his work to result in a product, but Microsoft has a proven track record of getting projects out of the laboratory and into the stores.
This is a product that's just come out now, and it's the first step of the TV and the computer coming together so that you won't just watch TV, you'll be able to get information at the same time you have a show.
So you mean I'll see it on my screen, but at the same time I can find out everything I want just by using my...
Yeah, as you're watching, you can go and see related information out on the internet.
Microsoft's focus on the Internet is what brought on a Justice Department lawsuit last October. The government said that Microsoft was requiring computer manufacturers to package the company's Internet browser, called Internet Explorer, with its Windows 95 operating systems. Microsoft came dangerously close to being fined $1 million a day for violating a judge's order before trial. But that controversy was settled last week. The lawsuit is still underway, though. The government claims that Microsoft is trying to use its overwhelming dominance in computer operating systems to compete unfairly in the browser market. The government sees it as a monopoly. Bill Gates argues that the lawsuit is a threat to future innovation.
What the government's saying is that we shouldn't put as many features into our products. The question is, are we allowed to put new features in for users, or does the government have a regulatory role in blocking that? It's like telling somebody they can't buy a car. They've got to go out and buy the motor, they've got to go out and buy the tires, they've got to go out and buy the radio. We'd never have the personal computer market today if that's how we had to do things.
It said that the reason that you want to control the browser is so that Microsoft controls the Internet. You can then have your travel agency, your gambling, your selling of cars, your news service, your everything. Microsoft will control the Internet.
Well, this is a great example where competitive rhetoric has gone so far that it's actually saying the opposite of the truth. Nothing is more open and flexible than the Internet. The number of places you can go on the Internet to get news, there are hundreds and thousands, and you get to choose. And so no one is going to control the Internet in any way, shape, or form.
Some people ask, when will it be enough? They say you have 90% of the world operating system and you want more. What's your ultimate ambition?
The thing that really drives me is building software products that can help people out. And we love the stimulation that comes with being in a business where no one has a guaranteed future. You have to earn it every year, so you're going to have to invent new things.
There is hardly a day in which something is not written about Microsoft. It has become almost a frenzy. You're being called the evil empire. You forget being called a nerd. You are now being called arrogant, greedy, the devil. You've read all this stuff. I heard that this has been said. What do you say about all of this?
Well, it's a very competitive business.
That's all?
Oh, no, absolutely. When you have the level of success that we've had, when you have a business that's important as this with this many competitors, you're going to have people saying some nasty things. And so you have to learn a little bit not to take it too personally.
Have you handled the matter wrongly?
In terms of what it's like to be sued by the government, I don't think anybody should have to go through that. It's a pretty awful thing. And no, I wasn't trained to have the government sue me and tell me I can't put great new things into the products. And so, you know, I'll learn, but it's not like you go through this more than once.
One of your friends told me that given your kind of mind, that in 10 years you might go in a totally different direction, that there are other things that just fascinate you. Can you see yourself doing something else?
Well, I have a lot of interests outside of work, things that I study and read about, and I enjoy that a lot. But in terms of my work, I'm a specialist. I've dedicated my life to building great software. That's what I've been doing for over 20 years. That's what I'll be doing the rest of my life.
That'll probably be a lot of years, too. I've been doing some arithmetic, and it's a $40 million house. $40 million is quite a mansion. But in proportion to his total wealth, it's as if somebody who made $40,000 a year or had $40,000 in the bank paid $40 for a house. Can you imagine that?
That's why it's so hard for us to understand $38 billion.
That's right. And that house, that's pocket change to him. The press and the government have been kind of rough on him.
Very.
But what do you think is the public perception of Bill Gates?
Well, I don't know how rough the government per se is. The press has been very tough on him, and yet ABC took a poll and 60% of the country favored Microsoft over the government. 2/3 said the government should leave Microsoft alone. So the press and the public do not see the situation the same.
Interesting, too. Well, anyway, you can learn more about Bill Gates by visiting our website at abcnews.com. And we'll be right back. Don't forget to watch Nightline after your local news. And tomorrow night, Barbara will be back on the new program, ABC News Saturday Night.
Well, that's right, Hugh. Ronald Reagan is about to turn 87. So tomorrow night, we're going to look at his extraordinary life. It could have taken a very different turn. We'll have past, never-before-seen clips of President Reagan, and we'll hear inside stories from Nancy Reagan and the Reagan children. The unlikely life of Ronald Reagan on ABC News, Saturday night, tomorrow at 10, 9 Central.
We'll watch. And on 2020 Monday, a woman was raped in the night, convinced she knew who did it.
I was positive. He was the face of my nightmares.
But she was wrong, and an innocent man went to prison. How can she live with that guilt? An unforgettable story of mistaken identity, Monday on 2020 at 9, 8 Central. And that is 2020 Friday. We thank you for joining us.
And remember, we're in touch, so you'll be in touch. I'm Barbara Walters.
And I'm Hugh Dowds.
And for all of us here at 2020, have a good weekend. Good night.
To order a video cassette or transcript of tonight's 2020 Friday, call 1-800-CALL-ABC.
2020 has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source. ABC News, now always on.